Come on.
Is your cable working or no?
I didn't turn it on.
What?
I didn't turn it on. Somebody else is having trouble.
You sure you're not muted?
Well, on yours, it says I am.
No, yours.
Oh, but, well,
Okay,
this
you're good.
says,
You're good now.
okay. Can you guys hear on Zoom hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll start from the beginning for this slide again. So I was just saying that sleep is a bit more complex than how a lot of people think about it. It happens in cycles, and each of those cycles can repeat anywhere from 4 to 6 times overnight. So each cycle is divided into 4 stages. We'll just go through them briefly. So stage 1 is considered light sleep. It's that actual transition between wakefulness and sleep. That's when the body starts slowing down, your eye movements slow down, you're entering drowsiness. And typically stage 1 should last several minutes before your body enters stage 2. Stage 2 is a little bit deeper sleep, even further reduced eye movements, brain waves start slowing down. It should be, or probably is the longest of the different sleep stages. Then we hit deep sleep and REM sleep, which are probably the most crucial and restorative when it comes to physical and cognitive function. So stage 3 is what we call deep or slow wave sleep. So here the brain waves are very slow and regular. People are harder to wake up once they reach stage 3 or deep sleep. Bodily function, so heart rate, breathing, they reach their lowest levels, muscles are relaxed as they should be. And we know that stage 3 is critical for bodily recovery and growth. So it's critical for restorative function. Following stage 3, we hit REM sleep. This is considered the dream stage where people, as the name suggests, people have rapid eye movements, actually increased brain activity, and should see is muscle paralysis, so people are not acting out their dreams. REM sleep has been linked to memory consolidation, so that's when the body, the brain turns recently learned information into longer term memories, and it occurs about 90 minutes after falling asleep. So each sleep cycle is 90 minutes and again repeats throughout the night. Yes. Oh, for the people on Zoom, you can hear me? She said it looks like I might be muted, but I think that's actually
no.
because we are doing 2 computers. Okay. All right, so on Zoom, we're good with the audio. Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, so with all of that being said, so what happens to sleep, that complex cycles, stages in people with Parkinson's disease? So Parkinson's disease can affect sleep a number of ways. First, due intrinsic to the disease itself, because you're seeing dopaminergic deficiency or dopaminergic degeneration, that directly impacts some of those sleep waves and cycles. So generally, people with Parkinson's disease actually have less REM sleep, and they have more difficulty reaching that slow wave sleep that's critical for restoration. We know that Parkinson's disease, we always focus on dopamine, but it's not the only player. So you have other neurotransmitters that can be altered, and they also have a role in that sleep-wake cycle and the sleep stages. Finally, just from a more practical standpoint, with the Parkinson's physical symptoms, if you're uncomfortable overnight, you have bothersome tremor, bothersome stiffness, you're not able to move easily in the bed and make yourself
I have
comfortable,
tremors
that
about
can
once
impair.
a month. Immediately, I'm great.
Eh,
I mean,
Okay. And then you can also have what we call non-motor symptoms, non-physical symptoms, so anxiety, and that can also play a role in insomnia and inhibiting you from getting a good night's sleep. And then finally, a lot of the Parkinson's medications that we use, we don't mention this as much, but they can also definitely play a role in sleep. So any dopamine therapy can be a little bit activating. So if you're taking a strong, short-acting dose close at night, that may impact your sleep. Sometimes we use antidepressants in Parkinson's disease, depending on which one. Some of those can also be a little bit activating and impact how good quality sleep you're getting. And some other non-dopaminergic, but other Parkinson's medications, like what we call anticholinergics, or another medication called selegiline, can also be very activating and impact the sleep at night. So that's another thing to think about. Okay. Finally, we talked about the circadian rhythm. So it's really not just the nighttime symptoms if you have poor sleep because of the specific sleep issue, because you're not comfortable physically and you can't get a good night's sleep. You're waking up multiple times a night. All of those issues do extend over to day. If you haven't had a good night's sleep, you're very sleepy during the day, you can take naps, sleep attacks, because you're sleeping during the day. That impacts how well you can sleep at night. And then we get a night-to-day reversal of the sleep-wake cycle and circadian dysfunction. So it's sort of a loop that sort of builds on itself. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the types of sleep issues we can see, but I think a bigger question is, why is this so important? So what exactly is the role of sleep? We already mentioned that it's been shown it's restorative. It allows the brain to recuperate from everything that it's gone through during the day. It supports memory consolidation and overall cognitive function. But how does it exactly do this? So probably one of the more interesting discoveries over the recent years is the discovery that the brain does have its own metabolic waste clearance system. So when you sleep actually during sleep, you're clearing metabolic waste from the brain, including beta amyloid, which is linked to cognitive limitations, and alpha-synuclein, which, as you all probably know, is linked to Parkinson's disease. So this waste clearance system is called the glymphatic system. So it's actually been not too long ago. It was first described by Dr. Neuro back in 2012, so just a little over a decade ago. We know now that the brain has its specialized waste clearance system. The important thing to note is that it works primarily during deep sleep to remove toxins and waste products, including the beta amyloid and alpha-synuclein. So essentially, it's like a plumbing system to flush out harmful substances. So your brain is bathed in a fluid called CSF, or cerebrospinal fluid. During sleep is really when you have an increase of fluid effusion into the brain, flushing out all of the waste products and toxins. And the interesting thing is that the system is really, really much more functional during sleep. So during sleep, we know that the neurons enter slow wave. Neurons can shrink a little bit, so they increase what we call the interstitial space, or that space in between the cells. And when you have that increased space, the CSF, or the fluid, can flow much more effectively throughout the brain, removing the toxins. And it's still a very active area of research, but it's been shown that reduced activity of the lymphatic system is linked to chronic neurologic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases. Okay, so why does it matter specifically in Parkinson's disease? So we know that sleep disruptions are common in Parkinson's disease. We already established that. When you have sleep disturbances, it reduces the efficiency of the lymphatic system, and that leads to toxin buildup. So when you have impaired lymphatic function, you have increased accumulation of alpha-synuclein, a key protein in development of Parkinson's. And then you eventually have impaired brain health. So we really know that you really need a proper lymphatic system functioning well to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. Okay, so how can we support this system? So we really have to prioritize quality sleep, and that's what we're going to focus on the rest of the program today. But really just sleep is a priority, and we have to actively work at getting a good night's sleep. What's interesting is that we know sleep position can help improve the function of the lymphatic system. So sleeping on your side and just having increased fluid flow through the brain can enhance the activity of the lymphatic system. Staying hydrated is important because CSF is fluid, so we need to stay hydrated. And regular exercise. I'm sure you've heard this over and over again, and there's been fantastic programs on exercise as well. But regular exercise, regular physical activity also promotes the functioning of the lymphatic system and leads to better quality sleep as well. Okay, so how do we manage the sleep issues? So first line therapy, the primary therapy should be non-pharmacologic, and we have a fantastic program called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia, or CBTI, which my colleague Natalie will be talking about in a little bit. Really focusing on good sleep hygiene, so maintaining an appropriate environment for sleep, following good habits to promote good sleep. Light therapy can be helpful. Exercise and Qigong or Tai Chi, which are low intensity physical movements or meditative movements that can help you reach a relaxed state. These are all really good ways to help improve sleep and address some of those specific sleep issues. But again, I won't go further into that because we have a fantastic rest of the program. Okay. If all of those non-pharmacologic treatments, you're doing CBTI, you're maintaining a good sleep environment, you're following good sleep hygiene, and we're still having issues falling asleep, or we have specific sleep disorders like REM sleep behavior disorder, there are medications available to help sleep. But we have to be careful here. I don't want to say it's a last resort, but we should make sure that we're exhausting or using medications in conjunction with non-pharmacologic treatments. And it's important to note and keep in mind that not all sleep medicines are equal. And there are some situations where we would prefer one medication over another. So these are examples, possible medications that we can use to treat sleep issues in Parkinson's disease or sleep issues in general. I will say that a lot of the what we call Z drugs, so things like Zolpidem, Zaleplon, or Sonata, we use them with caution in people who are 65 and under because these medications can have side effects like increased morning grogginess. They can have side effects like increased dizziness or leading to increased falls. So we have to use these with caution. Then a lot of the over-the-counter sleep medications, or they contain things like antihistamines. Benadryl is an antihistamine. That is probably not the best if we're really looking to improve sleep quality. Antihistamines like Benadryl will definitely make you drowsy and have you fall asleep, but it's been shown that they don't necessarily improve sleep quality, which is what we're looking for. And then finally, sometimes we use benzodiazepines. They can be effective in helping people fall asleep. They definitely have a role in treating specific sleep issues like REM sleep behavior disorder. But again, everyone is so individualized, and it's important to talk to your physician because, for example, if you have sleep apnea, as well, benzodiazepines can worsen sleep apnea because it can relax pharyngeal muscles and then make it more difficult to have airflow appropriately through the throat and the lungs. So there is a role for sleep medications, but it's important to have that conversation with your physician and to think about all of these issues. Okay, Now, that being said, that comes to the end of my talk, and I'll hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Natalie. Thank you. I think we decided we'll have questions at the end of both of our talks. Or I think maybe it might make sense after your talk, and we'll take questions together.
We'll take questions
Okay.
together. Sounds good. All right. Hello, everybody. Hoping you can hear me. It's a beautiful day here at the Rockland County Cultural Center. My first time. So happy to be away from New York City for a bit. And it's great to see some familiar faces in the audience, as well as some new faces. And I thank everybody for logging in here online. I do recognize some familiar faces on Zoom as well. And so to begin, what exactly is cognitive behavioral therapy? And I'm curious, I do see a hand. To move it over just a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. Let's see if we have two laptops going here. So let's see if we can do it from the other side.
Better?
I'll read out the words, so I promise you'll catch the gist of it. But to start, who here has heard of CBT? Or maybe even, I see a few hands, maybe even participated in CBT, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy is a structured, evidence-based form of psychotherapy that focuses on identifying and changing negative thought patterns and behaviors. We've actually had CBT around for quite a while. It dates back to the 1960s by a psychiatrist named Aaron Beck, who wanted to help people get out of these negative thought processes. And so we have also something called CBTI. Now, I think the song may be familiar if anybody recognizes the famous lullaby by Johannes Brahms, as well as it's called the Cradle Song. And I thought the song was fitting to get us in the mood here. So CBTI has become the gold standard for treating chronic insomnia. It is well endorsed by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and also the National Institute of Health. And it really is the first line treatment way over sleep medications, right? You just saw a slide that looked at different therapies that in some forms are inevitable, but we also have CBTI. And so I wanted to go over today very briefly the project that we had the opportunity to do thanks to the Parkinson's Foundation. We ran a 6-week educational Zoom program. We managed to get a wonderful expert on sleep, Dr. Paul Glavinsky, who taught these weekly classes, and basically it was CBTI, but in a group format rather than just one-on-one. We had 20 people participate. And just to give you a little summary of who joined, the average age of the individuals was about 74, but the youngest was like 49, the oldest was 86. So we had a nice group. Many people were retired who joined, and I guess it's not shocking because this was offered during the work week. So it turned out, who was available to participate. But it was overall a nice group, and I don't know how many people here are very interested in statistics, but this may put you to sleep. So I'm going to try not to keep it too dry. To measure the program, we use the Parkinson's disease sleep scale. And this scale measures disturbances specifically to Parkinson's disease. And people who had higher scores basically had better sleep, and lower scores were worse. So we ended up seeing a 19-point improvement after the 6 weeks, showing that people actually did benefit from participating in the CBTI group program. We also use the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, and it's actually it's an interesting survey that assesses overall sleep quality with higher scores indicating poor sleep. We did see a modest improvement in sleep quality using this survey. And the reduction suggested that some of the improvements in sleep disturbances was quite particularly in sleep efficiency. So it was the category of sleep efficiency that showed the most improvement. And what is sleep efficiency? So if you go home today learning a few new definitions, I hope this is one of them. And we'll have a little time later on in the interactive portion of our program to actually calculate this together. So sleep efficiency, sorry, we jumped back there for a second, is a measure of how much time you actually spend sleeping compared to the amount of time that you're in bed. And so there's an actual calculation, right? It's the time in bed divided by the total sleep time times 100, which gives us a percentage. So again, we will be doing this a little bit later on. And so part of the emphasis of the CBTI is sleep restriction. And the next few slides, I'm going to give you the 7 sort of summarized and synthesized points in CBTI. And this is a very important one. So it's limiting the time spent in bed to the actual amount of sleep that you're getting. It's a technique that we use to help consolidate sleep. And basically that makes the bed associated with sleep rather than wakefulness. Part of this involves something called stimulus control. Now, stimulus control involves changing the habits that reinforce wakefulness. So like we just said in the other slide, using the bed for sleep, right? We're not using the bed as a desk to do our taxes. The bed should be for sleep. Now, if you cannot fall asleep after 15 to 20 minutes, and this is something that our division chief, so my boss, Dr. Harini Sarva, commonly tells patients, if you can't sleep, you should leave the bedroom and try to engage in a quiet, relaxing activity until you feel sleepy. And I don't think enough of us necessarily do that, because I think quite often instead we'll choose to, let's try it again, let's lie there, close our eyes and see if the magic happens. But stepping away and sort of changing your mindset a little bit can actually help. And then the third part of this stimulus control is keeping a regular wake up time, even on weekends, to strengthen your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. And this is actually important. Obviously, if you're working, you are on demand, you have to wake up at a certain time. You sort of inevitably do it. But if you're retired, you might not have to. And so you're given this sort of luxury to sort of wake up when you want to, but that actually can become a little bit detrimental to keeping a regular good sleep-wake cycle. Number 3, cognitive restructuring. And I think this is something we could probably talk about all day long. It's addressing negative thoughts about sleep that often make insomnia worse. So it's not focusing on the need to have perfect sleep to function. And I think there are many of us here, I can speak for myself for sure. If we have something very important that we are expecting to do the next day, maybe it's a doctor's appointment, maybe it's a serious meeting, maybe it's a big family event, maybe it's a reunion. We really want to sleep well the night before, right? Because we want to feel empowered, we want to feel good, we want to feel at our best. But then if we focus so much on having that perfect night's sleep, unfortunately, quite often the reverse happens, and that can become extremely frustrating. So it's important to find ways to really avoid those unhelpful thoughts so that we can develop a more balanced attitude towards good sleep. Now, how many people have heard this term? This term has gotten a little bit trendy these days. Sleep hygiene sounds like something the dentist would offer you. Sleep hygiene basically means maintaining a comfortable sleep environment. As it's been studied, and this is not just random things I've put together here, but there's a lot of literature on this. The suggestion for good sleep hygiene is that the environment should be dark, quiet, and it also should be cool. Now, the dark part we have control over for the most part, right? We can, make sure that there's no light seeping through our windows. We can have those blackout curtains. Some of us might be able to control our heating system more than others, again, depending on where you live. In New York City, quite often it's opening up a window if the heat is on too high. But then, of course, you have to deal with the noise, right? How noisy is it where you live? And in some cases, if it's really loud and it's hard for a person to block out that noise, wearing earplugs can help. Avoiding stimulants, and this is a big one. And I think it sounds pretty straightforward, but it's also something we may not actually calculate into our day-to-day. So caffeine, which doesn't just exist in coffee, but it can be in sodas, it can be in chocolate. So caffeine is a biggie. That's going to stimulate us. It lasts in the bloodstream for about 6 hours. So you really want to think about, when is that last cup of coffee or tea at the end of your day? It's even suggested to have that cutoff point before 6 hours if you know you're going to want to go to sleep. And then finally, it's reducing screen time in the evening. This is so hard in today's world because I think most of us, will put the news on at the end of the day, or there's Netflix and there's Hulu and there's all those wonderful TV programs that we can't help but binge watch because one good episode will roll into the other. But it is suggested that we should be reducing our screen time in the evening, and probably across the board, right? Because the screens that we look at, and we have text messages, we get phone calls, we get hundreds of emails. It's a lot of information for our brain to handle. And if you think about this, 10, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have as much. And it seems like there's a strong correlation between the use of our screens and the inability to sort of slow down our brain waves at the end of the day when we're finally ready to do it. And so if you can, watch that last episode a little earlier and then try to turn off the TV a good hour, maybe even 2 before you go to sleep. Again, easier said than done. Now, point number 5, we kind of touched on this a little bit, right? Keeping a consistent sleep schedule, when I had talked about, trying to wake up at the same time each day, because that's part of it. And then, of course, it's the bedtime, right? So if you can actually find a system where you try to go to bed around the same time and you try to wake up around the same time, the body actually does like habits and routines. Now, here on the screen is a photo of Dr. Harini Sarva's dog, Benny. And we are blessed with many photos of Benny throughout the day. I think he's slowly becoming our team mascot. I had the opportunity of meeting Benny a couple of weeks ago, and Benny is a champion sleeper. He really knows how to tune out and just turn down at the end of the day, no problem sleeping. So we can follow Benny. Now, dealing with worry, I think this is something else that we could literally talk about all day, because we all worry, right? Life is hard. There are things that, we legitimately worry about. But there are strategies to deal with daytime worry, which can contribute to poor sleep. And that worry can sometimes seep into the night, right? How many times have you found yourself, you're falling asleep, you're dozing off, and then you start thinking about things, right? You start thinking about your next day, the things you have to do, the things you haven't done yet. And so there is a suggestion to set aside time during the day called worry time, or even better, to journal, right? And to try to help reduce the mental load at night. So before going to bed, if you can do this one thing, writing down a to-do list for the next day, right before going to sleep, and then just putting that aside. It is an actual physical way to help the brain unload. And by writing it down, we actually deal with our worry in a sense that now our brain has thought, okay, I thought about it, I put it down on paper, it's going to be handled, and then you just move on, right? You put it out of the forefront of your mind. And now for the 7th point of the CBTI suggestions, and this is a big one. We're actually going to have a chance to do this next. Relaxation training. So relaxation exercises like deep breathing or mindfulness can be helpful to reduce worry, to help with arousal and anxiety related to falling asleep. And so I'm going to pass on the microphone next to Dr. Sarah, and the music, Claire de Lune, I find very relaxing, so I thought appropriate. We may want to take questions at this moment, and then
Hello. Does anybody have any questions first?
I see hands.
Robin. You could speak into this. Speak into the mic.
Could you just comment for a minute about some of the CBTI apps on the market?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm glad you asked because we did use one in particular. The app that we used was CBTI Coach, and it's offered through the Veterans Association. It's free, it's legit, it's available to everyone. What's important about that app, and I put this as a disclaimer because there are lots of apps out there. Some of them are not as well regulated, and you obviously have to be careful about which information you put in. Because obviously this is data, right? This is your data. So CBTI Coach doesn't collect any personal information, but it's great because it's basically like a sleep diary. So it helps you monitor your timing when you go to bed, when you wake up. So it factors in some of that sleep efficiency, which we're going to get into in a moment. So that's the number one I recommend, and we've actually had experience with it. For those of you who are not into apps, there are also sleep logs, so paper logs, which can also work just as well. And I'm happy to extend that maybe as a part of our resources. We can add that in. But great question, Sam.
One in the morning.
Say that one more time about waking up.
Can he be relied on to wake the Sarvas in the morning?
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because she does like to encourage Benny to have a routine. And so interestingly enough, you know, people who have pets, I have heard so many times from people that quite often their cat will wake them up, right? Or the dog, because obviously the dog needs to have the bathroom break. So yeah, it's true. Having a pet and having a Benny in your life, it actually will coincide because, you know, the pets are part of the family. And we adjust our lifestyle to them. Knowing that somebody's counting on us is like an alarm clock in and of itself. But he doesn't bark and wake her up. I will tell you that much. It's more that, you know, she'll wake up knowing he's gotta go for a walk before it's time to get to work.
Any other questions? Miriam? Oh, I thought you were prepared.
And if no other questions, I'm sure other thoughts will come up as we go along, especially in the interactive portion of our program, which is when I hope everybody will have a chance to actually focus on some of these 7. And I'm going to just move the slide down. Just as a side note, and it will be in your packet as well, the Weill Cornell Sleep Center. It's a wonderful group of physicians who do assess sleep problems. So if somebody has a real legit sleep issue, it would certainly make sense to have an actual sleep study. And then Dr. Paul Glavinsky, who I had this wonderful opportunity to work with, the sleep expert that I mentioned, he practices outside of St. Peter's in Albany, but he also has a part-time practice in New York City. He is accepting new patient referrals. So this would be for CBTI one-on-one rather than like the group program that I had mentioned. And he does take traditional Medicare for insurance. So just putting that plug. And we're going to keep those goals in mind as we segue into the next. So thank you, everybody, so much.
Before I dive in, I want to just reflect on all the 2 wonderful presentations, and let's just take a pause. We've already received so much information. Let's take a moment to just process, let it settle, maybe check in with the body. If there's anybody who needs to stretch or move their body, feel free. And secondly, if any of you want to just look at your notes or just think about the two talks we had. So Dr. Ween's talk about all the information on sleep. Is there anything that stood out for you that maybe you look at your notes or maybe you just reflect? Anything that made you think that this is one part of your sleep that you should remember?
Should I leave it on?
Yeah, I think leave these on. Well, what's better
Okay,
for Zoom?
tell me when you need to go.
Okay, yeah, that's a little later. Should we, this is fine. People on Zoom can see me, so we'll leave it as is. I will refer to all these from a mindfulness approach. And then maybe the second talk, any of these 7 that already that maybe you want to work out or you think might be. So I'm doing this just to give the brain a chance to catch up. Natalie mentioned a little bit about all the stimuli that we have coming into our brain all the time. And it's everywhere. The brain operates in a go or no go fashion. We have signals that are saying, okay, stay alert, excitatory, meaning the brain has to be on. And we have other signals in the brain that are saying, stop, they're inhibitory. They're specifically suppressing some activities of the brain in order for other ones to function. But when we go through, as we do all day, and we're just going, and we don't stop to pause, we're in an overdrive. And our society is just like that we think it's normal that we should be going from one activity to the next continuously, always ready to be alert, to learn, full of energy, social, moving. And our brains and our bodies actually aren't meant to work that way. It's supposed to be a period of effort and a period of pause. So let's just pause for now, and keeping that in mind, just take a deep breath. And I'll just use this as an opportunity to teach you how to breathe. I'm going to step back, see if I can get, so let's see if everybody can see me. Zoom is here. Okay. Put your hands on your ribs so that your thumbs are in the back. And your hands are otherwise wrapped around your ribs. And as you take a deep breath, try to pay attention to your hands touching your ribs and see if you can direct your breath into that lower part of the lungs, such that you can make your hands move. And out. Now try to see if you can feel your diaphragm and belly moving kind of in the front, this area, but can you also get your ribs to expand outward? So as you inhale, can your lungs move to the side? And as you exhale, gently feel them deflating. For the audience that's sitting, and I'm assuming most people are sitting, can you breathe into the back of your lungs? Or if you're standing, just have your thumbs back there. Can you make the back of your ribs move with your breath? As you inhale and exhale. And I love that people are standing up. Feel free to stand up, move your body, try different positions. Okay. Deep breath into the base of the lungs, then bring the air to the middle of the lungs, bring the air to the top of the lungs. Let's expand these lungs and exhale. Just a few more times. Inhale on your own. Try and you can close your eyes, bring your attention inward. Just imagine the air coming to the bottom, middle, top of the lungs. And exhaling from the top, middle, and down.
Is this through the nose?
Nose is preferred, yes. And one more on your own. And exhale. Okay. And we're going to have some longer meditation and breathing. But this is just a chance for the brain to just reset. You have just sent a signal to your brain that you don't have to pay attention to anything external right now. It's okay to bring your attention inward. That alone sends a safety signal and allows the brain, okay, the alertness can temporarily quiet down, even though you were listening to me, even though you were still processing and doing something. The safety of this activity was a little bit of a rest and a recharge. So I mentioned the nervous system has signaling for an alert and a non-alert. This is, in the medical terms, called the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is the part of your nervous system that sends a whole body signaling to be on arousal. It involves cortisol, noradrenaline, and excitatory neurotransmitters. Although really excitatory neurotransmitters are involved in both, because at all times some part of the brain is active. The rest part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, when it has a strong presence in your body, your heart rate slows down, your breathing slows down, your cells enter into a repair, digest, get rid of chemicals, toxins, the same thing that happens in sleep. We can do while awake and alert, metabolize, get rid of clearance. Digestion is required on the parasympathetic tone. You digest better when your body's relaxed. If we have cortisol and noradrenaline surging through your body, there are no signals going to the gut. It's going to be in stasis. It's not going to move. It's not going to digest. So all this says that it is very helpful for meditation and breathing, which is what I teach. I try to teach people how to get in sync with these rhythms. Are you in a state of arousal or a state of relaxation? And how can we use meditation and breathing to learn how to do this on the go throughout the day? We already managed to make it here. Congratulations. Those who are here on Zoom, you've scheduled your day around. That required planning, certainly getting here, navigating this beautiful campus, but certainly a little bit of stress to get here. We had social time. All of this is already active for the brain, as wonderful as it is. So now we're all going to get to practice some relaxation. Thank you for having me today. And if you can learn how to work with your body and get your body to be in the relaxed state, this is one thing that can support sleep. Oops, sorry. Also, I'm just going to look at, so this is the worksheet. I'll guide you through it a little bit. The first 2 pages are what we're going to work through in this interactive part. I'm going to finish my talk and then we're going to lead you through some goal setting sessions. We're giving you so much information, right, about good sleep, about all these techniques. We're going to spend some time working through with each of you what is a scientific method for actually achieving goals. This is the science of behavior change, lifestyle medicine, just some tips so that as you leave here, you have a method for how to actually incorporate this into your life. So that's the first 2 pages. Page 3 is on one side, the 7 tips that Natalie talked about. And on the back are some tips from my approach, mindful neurology, meditation related activities. So very briefly, with meditation, it addresses many of the same concepts that CBTI is. So first of all, relaxation. We teach you how to support this rest and repair system of the body. We'll do this together. It teaches us a little bit how to recognize worry thoughts. Like as you start to get into this stage of worry, what you can do to actually stop those thoughts. Say you want to try to reduce screen time in the evening. You say, yeah, probably the TV is not helpful. But how do you do it? What do you replace that with? Mindfulness can give you a relaxation routine to do in the evening. So you might start by first recognizing, well, what do I find comforting? It could be a bath. It could be taking time to change into your pajamas, have a cup of tea, have a calming conversation with someone in your house, or read a book. So you need this awareness to start reflecting on your lifestyle and not being hard on yourself. That's another thing that meditation teaches you, how you can be kind to your own self. We'll talk a little bit about this maybe all through the meditation. And it gives you this observation skills through meditation. You learn to follow your own patterns. So you start to see, oh, this actually caused me some stress. Is there something I can do to solve that stress, handle it differently, maybe delegate a task if it's grocery shopping, or do I need to calm myself down? Alita was talking about this, someone here, right? If you have an anxiety, can you find something that helps you feel soothing? With meditation and mindfulness, you learn to self-reflect in a very specific skill. And this is what meditation, one of the things that meditation teaches you. So just to summarize, and I'm going to lead us now through an exercise, but the role of meditation is one to actually calm down that nervous system. Everything we do, it has been shown, stimulates this parasympathetic nervous system. Herbert Benson was a cardiologist who pioneered the science of mind-body medicine in the 1970s by showing that this breathing and meditation stimulates the parasympathetic tone. This has now been repeatedly shown on EKG. You can see the heart rhythms, which are the key to the for us finding the balance. But the second part, not just doing some breathing, the second part is actually to disengage from thoughts. And that is a very important part of it, that when you we're going to try and focus on something, breathing, and then another task. When you notice thoughts come in, you have to actively disengage, say not right now. And what we see on MRI is that when you learn this technique of noticing a thought, but bring it back to your area of focus, you calm down that thinking network.
That's Sarah.
So,
Can you just clarify that?
yes.
What are you supposed to do with the thought?
Okay, we're gonna guide you through this. Yeah, I'll guide with the exercise. Maybe I should just do it. I'll do the teaching through the meditation. Let's practice a little bit of meditation, and Maurice, I'll do the gongs in just a few minutes. We're gonna start with meditation, okay? Two options. Let's start with the breath. Go ahead and bring your, and we're gonna actually, if anybody needs a break, we're gonna have a bathroom break as soon as I'm done here and take a little pause, but feel free to get up and move as you need. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and bring your attention inward to your body and start to identify the rhythm of your breath as it is naturally occurring in your body. Okay, step one, what Dr. Herbert Benson showed and what I use in my technique, just by bringing your attention inward, you're giving a signal to the brain, this is a safe situation. So find your breath as it rises with the inhale and gently deflates with the exhale. Now I'm going to ask you to keep your attention there for a few minutes while I give you breaks of silence. Inhale, exhale. Were you still staying focused, or had a thought come in to distract your attention? We have a very active mind that always is giving us thoughts. By the way, keep your attention on your breath. You can do that while also listening to me. Inhale, exhale. So even if I'm talking, you should be aware of where your breath is. That's mind-body connection. And a way to stay in that rest and repair mode even when you're out and about. Now, what happens is that you will have a thought that comes in. We'll practice this a little more in part 2 of the exercise. If you notice a thought, bring your attention back to the sensations of the breath. Practice the 3-part breathing if you want, with your hands on your ribs or feeling your back against the chair if that's helpful. You can also engage more of your senses. Can you hear yourself breathing? Feel the air coming in through your nose, ideally nose if possible. Feel that velocity, and how far into the back of your throat can you detect that sensation of the inhale? And as you exhale, can you feel the temperature difference between the inhale and the exhale? Link the upper and the lower respiratory. Can you feel the inhale and all those sensations? And the movement of the ribs and the diaphragm and the lower lung. So for 1 minute, we're going to stay focused on that. I'll give you a 30-second reminder to try and keep your mind steady, but the goal is feel the inhale, the exhale, pay attention to that rhythm, notice the transition, how the breath slows down as it transitions to the other phase of the breath. I'll leave you some silence as you practice that. Keep your mind focused. I've given you a task. If your mind wanders, that's normal, but right now, bring it back. Few more seconds. Focus hard. This is your chance to train your attention. Get your mind to do what you want it to do. I'm actually going to stick with this for just a tad bit longer. No matter distractions, your breath is with you. You can retain awareness of your breath. Inhale, transition, exhale. Being very intentional about what you're paying attention to. Stay with this, train your attention. I don't know how many people are engaged or have lost attention. There's some distractions. I invite you to, with full earnestness, feel the sensations of your breath as it enters the nose, fills your lungs, and you exhale. Okay, I invite you to go ahead, release your focus, go ahead, stretch, move around. Good. Thank you for your engagement and focus. This is the nutshell of meditation, that you decide one activity to focus on internally, so internal stimulus. So breath, I'm going to teach you another one. And you make that commitment to pay attention on purpose for 5-10 minutes, and you disregard spontaneous thoughts. You're going to have so many thoughts that come in, that phone call you have to make, What time is it? How much time has it passed? Am I doing it right? My breathing is so shallow. I mean, it's endless what the mind will come up with. You're going to remember a conversation you had. That's normal. For these 5-10 minutes, you decide not to engage. You just bring it in. And through this process, you change your brain. You form new networks in your brain. And most important for what we're talking about, you train your nervous system to enter into this relaxed mode. So we do it twice a day, and then you learn to maintain this composure throughout the day. And that's when the benefits of mindfulness and meditation carry with you through the day. Another technique, some of you may have heard of mantra meditation or even completed transcendental meditation at some point. Different type of meditation is when you silently repeat a word to yourself. Go ahead and try it. Repeat the word one silently in your head. Again, one. One. Replace that with the word peace or focus, whichever works better for you. You silently repeat it, slowly, paying attention, almost hearing it, even though it's silent in your head. That's mantra meditation. Also stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's an alternate thing to focus on instead of paying attention to the breath. So any questions with that? I hope any of this was clear. That's what meditation is. And this is one process to understand a little bit what's going on in your mind and how you can start to work with the nervous system to prepare for sleep. The more you calm your nervous system throughout the day is easier to prepare it for sleep. And also at night, when you wake up, a thought is very activating. So we learn techniques to disengage from thinking and practice something else instead, like breathing. I don't know how people are feeling. Maybe we'll take a pause a little bit. Let's see, we're at 1:20. So we have a second part of this workshop. And I thought what we can do is take a pause and then
Do you want to take
reconvene.
a break, a bathroom break?
Maybe. Looks like some people already
And
went,
then
but
come back in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
yeah,
okay?
I think so. Let's take a quick
Yeah.
break, think about it, and stay
Bathrooms right there.
mindful. As you walk around, keep your attention inward. Okay. As you walk around, keep your attention inward. An activity known as mindful walking is where you feel the sensations of your feet. So as you take every step, feel it. Feel it hitting the ground, feel the legs swinging. You will naturally slow down. If you slow your thoughts down, your movements slow down. But this is one way to help that motor connectivity work better. Don't be afraid to slow down, feel, let the brain process it. We'll see you back in a few minutes.
Something short of silence, driving my thoughts away to drive me up the wall. Ever so self-defiant, everything's okay.
Yeah.
Do we need the second lap? The second lap?
Mm. No, actually, we don't. Close it? You don't need it, right?
I don't think so. I think it was sent out to all Zoom registrants, so check your email. And this is a goal setting document. So we talked about some of the things that we can do for our health. We can try to improve, try to relax our body more, do more relaxation. Maybe we can try to get to sleep better. We can minimize screens. If you try to do everything at once, it's really what the science of behavior change tells us that it's not going to work. The best thing that we can do to make wellness interventions, which is basically a lifestyle change, is to choose one topic and really make it a priority. So first of all, you decide on a goal. Then you figure out how you're going to implement it. You track it. And later you reflect. And you say, okay, did I achieve the goal? Did it have the outcome that I wanted? Do I actually feel better? Is this worth the time and the effort that I put in? So this is what we're going to actually ask you to think about a specific goal. And in a second, I'm going to see if there's any volunteer that wants to share a specific goal, actually. Is there anybody that has one from they've heard today that's really inspiring and they're ready to commit to something, saying, I'm going to work on this? Not yet? Okay, so we're going to have plenty of chance to share, but think about it. What I want to encourage you, I'm going to invite Natalie over to lead us through this workshop. We're going to focus a little bit on sleep and sleep efficiency. We talked about it, but feel free to choose something else that might resonate with you. Maybe start a relaxation routine at night, incorporate some stretching. Also think about what feeds your soul. So we have many needs. We have a physical body, a brain that needs to be alert and relaxed, a body that needs to be fed and move and sleep. We also have our intellectual needs. We need to come here and learn so that we can plan our lives. We have our social needs. There's lots of different things that we could incorporate into our life that would improve our wellness, our quality of life, our well-being. So feel free to choose something you've been wanting to include in your life that's not necessarily specific to sleep or even anything that we've talked about today. All right, with that, I'm going to invite Natalie up here to talk a little bit about a sleep goal.
Thank you. Everybody hearing me okay? So if everybody looks at their worksheet, so did anybody start? That first question is basically, how would you describe your sleep recently? And this is actually, it is part, if you remember when I was talking through the slides and we had done that CBTI 6 weeks course, and we did the surveys before, we did the surveys after. The surveys included the question about, is your issue falling asleep? Is it staying asleep? Do you end up waking at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's like you're done for the night? Or is it restless sleep, or is it basically just, something else? All of the above, somebody said, yes, yes. So that certainly that's challenging. What's a really, strongly suggested idea is to try to keep that diary. And I know somebody asked earlier about the app. So the CBTI Coach app is one way to do it, but then actually keeping a diary. So writing it down, maybe this upcoming week, write down what time do you go to bed, what time roughly do you fall asleep, and then, how many times do you wake up? The calculation, we should try to do this together. So the sleep efficiency calculation, if you see that at the bottom of the page, that's your total sleep time, right? So you have to think about, roughly, I guess by a show of hands, just out of curiosity here, how many people get about 5 hours of sleep? I see one hand. Okay, at least 5. Any 6? Do we get 6 hours of sleep? Okay, good. How about 7? I feel like we're at an option now. Okay, and then 8 or 9. I see 8, so which is great. Another hand showing 8. In current literature, I think for a long time, we always talked about, well, we have to get at least 8 hours of sleep. The average adult needs that. And I learned from Dr. Paul Levinsky that that's actually not necessarily true. It's not necessarily the length of time, but it is the quality. What I think many people do struggle with, though, is that long time that's spent in bed where you're not actually getting that good deep sleep that's uninterrupted. So if we were to do this calculation together.
I think it looks like there's a problem with the audio. Is the audio Zoom hearing us now? Do you think we could recap, just let the Zoom audience know that there's a worksheet that's been sent out and that you're going to be going through now?
Yes, so I don't know if anybody could hear that from the Zoom, but we are looking at the worksheet. So everybody was mailed this by email. We're spending a few minutes looking at the bottom part. So again, repeating this for the Zoom audience who might not have heard me a few minutes ago. We're looking at the sleep efficiency calculation. So we're doing it all together right now. And if you need a calculator, that is okay, because I have mine here. So total sleep time. So you have to think about, I know we have by show of hands, some people get 5, some people get 6, some people get 7, some people get 8. If you take that actually now time that you spent in bed, how many of those 5 hours sleeping are you actually in bed? How many of the 6, how many of the 7? And then we calculate that, we divide one over the other and we calculate it by 100, right, to actually get the percentage. And I'm just going to read you the score interpretation. So, if your percentage score of sleep efficiency is 50 or lower, that's actually severe sleep deprivation. 60 to 69, getting there, but still not great. 70 to 84 is usually some kind of sleep disturbance. Ideally, we want to be in the 85% or higher, right? So it's like, if I go to bed at 10 and I need to wake up at 6, ideally, it may take me 15, 20 minutes to fall asleep. Maybe I've woken up once in the night to go to the bathroom, which is pretty common. Then I go back, I fall asleep, and then I wake up at 6 o'clock when my alarm wakes me up, or whatever time it may be in your personal routine. Does that make sense? Do we have questions? Yes.
What happens if I do sleep one day, 7 hours, 6 hours, whatever I sleep? I'm waking up and I'm still very tired. And
Yeah.
it takes me a while to rally.
It takes you a while to rally, so that's a common challenge as well. The question for audience here on Zoom and anybody else who didn't hear, so what happens if I do go to sleep? I sleep about 7-ish hours, but I wake up and I'm still tired, right? I'm not waking up with the birds singing, ready to start my day off, with a lot of gusto. So that obviously that's not great. There may be things going on that's contributing to that. I will say, if somebody is experiencing like chronic fatigue, or they feel like pretty tired and it really takes them a while to get going, you do have to think about what may help you with that. Some people do need that morning cup of coffee to start getting the wheels turning. I think that's something we also get used to, right? If we're used to a caffeine kick. The other thing is, how deep was your sleep, right? Because if you get interrupted once or twice, or maybe it did take some time falling back asleep, maybe you wake up often, maybe you have a bed partner who snores, maybe you're the one who's snoring and maybe not even breathing as well. Chronic fatigue or chronic morning tiredness, it does require some, at least medical conversation. And I did mention before, for anybody who is having like real sleep trouble where they just feel like they want to nap all day, or they feel like they could fall asleep at the drop of a hat, it is worth getting an evaluation at a sleep center, right? Especially if it's becoming serious. You have to think also about medication. So anybody taking, XYZ from the Parkinson's regimen, and I'm sure anybody on levodopa may recognize this, that sometimes it's taking that first levodopa dose that can get things going as well. And that's like another thing aside from sleep, but it certainly can contribute to that feeling.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you do with sleep efficiency then? Suppose it is bad, or, what are the recommendations?
Yeah, so if a score for sleep efficiency, so if we have someone who, I mentioned the percentages, the percentages are just a suggestion. It may be that, most nights the sleep efficiency isn't bad, and an occasional night you're just laying there and you're just not sleeping for multiple hours. But if that becomes consistent, right, if we see that percentage where like our sleep efficiency is pretty low, it definitely requires an evaluation, right? To think about what is interfering. Is it the environment? Is it the temperature? Is my mattress not comfortable? Do I have a cat that wakes me up in the middle of the night multiple times, right? That can be the case. I know that we were talking about the pets earlier, so it is an analysis of what's going on in the bedroom, what's going on in the sleep environment, and if there could be something medical to that. There are many people who do suffer from sleep apnea. There are many people who suffer from restless leg syndrome. That's another very big challenge if you have leg cramping. So if you do a percentage, right, and it's not just one night, but it's multiple nights, it definitely requires, a further detailed conversation. I do think, even Parkinson's aside, right, because we know that with Parkinson's, there can be a higher risk associated with sleep problems. However, even outside of Parkinson's, there are a lot of people who just don't sleep well. Or another thing, and we didn't have so much time to get into it because when I gave the 7 points, these are very short summaries. We could dive in deeper to them, but I had mentioned about the stimulation, right? So too much screen time might get your brain ramped up even more. But then there's also like the lack of stimulation during the day, right? So it's like, have you walked outside? Have you exercised? Have you talked to people? Have you socialized? If your day has gotten a little mundane and you're not getting there, you're not putting yourself in potential social situations or moments where you are, mentally or physically stimulated, that actually can contribute to, poor sleep insufficiency. Your body is now just not tired enough. I have had patients in the clinic tell me that, where they realize, once they started physical therapy, once they started getting out there and exercising more, I have, hands-on had people tell me that they're doing better, that they're sleeping better. So all of that has to get factored in. So we give you this worksheet. So how do we do with the sleep efficiency? Does anybody have questions on that specifically? It's probably easier if you literally write it out and say, okay, I go to bed at 10, I wake up at 6, or I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at 5. What's the rough routine? But then how many hours are you sleeping? right? So out of those hours in bed. Do we want to spend a little more time on this, or do we want to go into part 3 on the second page?
Question from
the
audience.
One question about the sleep, my Apple Watch. Is my source of, and unfortunately, Sarah Reynolds, who's very kind and very capable, obviously, she said, forget the Apple Watch, it just shows the heart rate. That's all it tests for.
Yes, so
Oh, however, it looks very promising. I have 8 hours and 31 minutes in bed and 8 hours 25 minutes sleep. But almost like 5 months is also deep sleep.
yes, so I'm going to just repeat a little bit of what you said. We've just heard that the sleep app, right? So it's the phone, or do you have the Apple Watch as well?
Watch, but the data comes into the phone.
And the data comes into the phone, right? So we do have, I have an Apple Watch as well. I don't use it for sleep. I always take it off before I go to bed, but there are some people who like to sort of monitor their sleep that way. I do know, and this actually came from Dr. Daniel Barone, who is in charge of our sleep center at Weill Cornell. He gave a grand rounds talk recently, and he did comment on the watch, which is fine because it gives you a rough estimate. It's not perfect for calculating. Join the meeting. So the stages that Dr. Evelyn Huyn mentioned in the first slide, right? We have the first stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage. Unfortunately, the watch it's not yet smart enough to differentiate those stages. So it kind of only tells you, okay, you've been pretty much just lying there for X number of hours, which is good, right? That does give you some data, but it's not perfect, right? So we can only sort of use it for the face value that it's at, but at least your watch is giving you a clue, right? Roughly, these are the number of hours.
As the person who's sleeping next to him, there's a whole lot of movement going on at times.
Yeah, and just to again fill in our audience on Zoom. So, and I'm glad this was mentioned because sometimes we ourselves may not realize if we're talking in our sleep, if we're actually having a very restless sleep, it's our bed partner that can give us a clue and say, wow, you were moving around a lot, or you had a dream, you were punching, you were kicking. It's sometimes hard to differentiate because the person who's doing all that movement, they actually may legitimately be asleep, but it's not a calm sleep. And so the watch will have a little difficult time registering that as well. I don't think Apple has quite figured out yet, right, the REM sleep behavior component of sleep.
They claim they have the way they list it and categorize it, they feel they have.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the pathway is there. Again, just commenting from the sleep expert at Weill Cornell, it's not fully there yet, but it's sort of like another barometer. The other barometer we're suggesting here is, try to write it down, right? Try to keep that diary. And so maybe by doing this for, let's say, a week or two, a person can start to recognize what is the pattern and what is the pattern of their sleep efficiency. So actually the part 2, the diary that this is like the sample diary. We could probably share more if somebody is interested in actually doing this long term. I'm happy to extend that to Susan as well, because I think that'll be like a nice, an ongoing worksheet. It is like the sleep diary, but then longer, right? So that you can actually keep record of this for a longer period of time.
I had neuropathy for a while. It was really bad. My cramping in my feet.
So
and one would cramp, one wouldn't, and it happened routinely. Which right or left, it didn't matter. It would switch. But it would take me an hour or two to get sleep.
Yep.
Went away, baby.
And it did go away. Yeah, that's a tough symptom. So again, for those listening in on Zoom, other symptoms like neuropathy, leg cramps, that can certainly influence one's sleep. And it was just commented, right? So it could take an hour or two to actually fall asleep because you have that sensation. And if that's the case, and that's really a tough symptom that's just not going away by itself, that requires a little more exploration of remedies. But I will say also, just restless leg syndrome is a syndrome in and of itself. And probably a big reason why many people end up at the sleep center for evaluation. Susan, I see your hand is up.
I really find for myself, if I don't exercise, if I don't exercise hard, I don't sleep that good at night. And I just feel like the exercise programs that we have, you have to work very, very hard. You have to feel pain in your muscles the next day to really know that you are exercising. You need to get strong in your legs, your feet, your buttocks, everything. And push-ups, squats, all those things, those are really key. I really think that helps a lot with sleeping. Simone, what's your question?
My question is, when is the optimum time to exercise? You know, I mean, you can exercise in the class in the morning, but when can you exercise at night? How late should you be able to do that?
Sure. So there was a question about, how late can you exercise?
So-
And, I know if Dr. Paul Klevinsky were here, he definitely would encourage that there is a sort of a hallmark window of time. Usually a couple of hours before you intend to go to sleep. If you can vigorously exercise where, you increase your heart rate, you're starting to sweat a little bit, you warm your core body temperature. And that is part of also helping to regulate a better sleep cycle. I think there's a lot of variability here, right? Because we know in the real world, people tend to exercise at all different hours. So I think part of it is as well, especially if you have Parkinson's symptoms, when do you feel your best? Because you want to use that window to try to really give it your all, right? When do your medications peak so that you're on? But as far as vigorous exercise, there is a window of time and it should be a few hours before.
What is a few hours before? That's what I want to know. Is it 3 hours good enough? Or
I would say about 3 to 4 hours, and I can look back at the literature to see exactly what the study showed. But if you're planning on being in bed by 10, then you want to think about the 3 to 4 hour window. One of the recommendations too in kind of looking back at the sleep studies is when people shower, right? So if you take a nice warm shower, you also kind of bring, you change your core body temperature. So it's a similar idea that if you can get some good cardio in, but again, that's the kind of exercise where you're pushing yourself. You don't really want to do that right before you go to bed, right? Because now you're actually waking yourself up.
With regards to cramping, okay, what a good recommendation would be just try to stretch it out, right after it happens, and when you're relaxed, stretch that. It's calf, then just stretch it out for about a minute, and that should help.
Yes, I love that suggestion, and I have heard of this as well. Stretching for if you have leg cramps, stretching, kind of leaning against the wall, right? So you really stretch out the back calf. And if you think about it, when we exercise or we take long walks, I think most of us don't stretch enough. I know I certainly don't. But stretching can be extremely helpful. Warm compresses, warm soaks before you go to sleep as well. I think a lot of people also, again, now if we try to go back to, what is a symptom that many people may face versus very classic for Parkinson's is something called dystonia. So people can also get a kind of a leg cramping from that as well. And it tends to reveal itself. And I hear this in the clinic all the time. It tends to reveal itself a lot when a person is now sort of done for the day, settling in for the day. They're propping their feet up to maybe, watch something while they're on the sofa, or they're laying in bed and the toes start to cramp or the legs start to cramp. So yes, stretching is key for that. I'm glad that suggestion was brought up. So thank you for that. Do we want to segue into part 3 yet, or do we want to go into the goals now? What are our thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. Susan was saying that maybe we should try to end by 2:15.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes to.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody wanted to maybe share, like if there has just sort of from this program thus far, those 7 suggestions, and there are a lot, right? We talked about sleep hygiene, we talked about the cognitive reconstruction. Is there anything that anybody just strikes them right now as far as a goal? Like, what's your main if you could only pick one? Because remember, if we bite off too much more than we can chew, it's hard to accomplish those things.
Anybody have one?
I have one. When I can't fall asleep at night and I toss and turn more than 15 or 20 minutes, I'm gonna get up and go read a book somewhere else. So.
Okay, that was a great. So Susan, volunteer. If she cannot go to sleep, reading a book, just getting away. That was Dr. Harini Sarva always said, don't lay there. Don't lay in bed and ruminate and worry more. Get up, read something, change your mindset.
So how are you going to track it? So then we follow up with, okay, so then we follow up with, then how are you going to track it? Are you going to do a diary? Are you going to write down, or are you going to reflect the next day? How do you hold yourself accountable?
I think I'll write it down.
It's very helpful to write it down. I can't stress enough for behavior change.
Yeah.
An observed particle acts differently than an unobserved particle. It's true for behaviors. It's true for the mind. The second you start to observe it, it's going to behave better. If you write it down, you'll notice at the end of the week, your numbers will improve just because you're holding yourself accountable. You can also share with a partner in your house or a family member. All right, so
the notebook where I keep the book.
Okay.
And I go to read.
And what's your time frame? When do you want to try that? You're going to start tonight? You're going to start right away? I imagine, right? That's an easy.
No, I think I'll start next week.
Next week, okay. Okay, you got it.
I have to move my mother first.
Oh, right. Well, you can do that. Okay, so Susan said that she has something else going on, and that's her goal this week. That is a wonderful answer. Her priority right now is do whatever is necessary to achieve her immediate goal, which is, she mentioned, to move her mother. So that is great observation. Do one thing at a time. So do that and recognize. So in some way you pacify your body. Okay, body, we're going to work on this. This is going to be a priority. Hold on just a little bit more. I'm going to focus on this part of my family need. Yeah, okay. Anybody else want to volunteer something? Yes, Simone.
I'm going to try to not watch TV or work on my phone.
There's the audience, the audience. Zoom will you directly. You talk over the microphone.
Thank you. Okay, I will try very hard to reduce my TV time as well as screen time. But is it okay if instead in bed I read for like 10-15 minutes? Something has to. Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah,
I have to get out of bed. I could read in bed.
I think again, when we say reducing the screen time, watching a little TV is okay. Ideally not, multiple episodes that are very exciting and now you're more awake than actually going to sleep. And sometimes just reading. So reading.
Career or anything comedian. Because they're funny, but they talk a lot about politics. Not for me, and I can't watch. I gotta stay awake.
Yeah, I think that's why watching the news or watching things that are difficult, things that can sort of make you fall asleep almost upset is probably not ideal. Something nice, light comedy, and then just reading a book. I know a lot of us have Kindles now. At least Kindles have the option to switch to the brown light. Right, in our first slide when we started the program, light is a stimulant. So it's the blue screen of your phone or of your television or of your computer. It actually tricks the brain into thinking that it's sunlight. But a regular book, right, you're not going to have that glare from the screen. So I think that's a nice idea. And
yeah, I have a book.
You have a book light? Yeah, the book lights are great. Actually, my husband has one. He's been using it now, and it gives like a kind of an amber-ish light, so it's not very bright, and you don't disturb, anybody there if your bed partner wants to fall asleep, right? So the light that way, it's not aggressive on the eyes, and it doesn't overstimulate you. And yeah, you could just quietly read before bedtime.
Now, does this not conflict with the stimulus association to associate the bed with sleep? I mean, as long as it's a relaxing activity and doesn't interfere with your sleep, right? Because one note was made to try to associate bed only with sleep.
Otherwise, I fall asleep in the chair and then I wake up kind of,
Yeah.
crunched up to go move. So this is, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, again, if it's relaxing, right, and if that's part of your routine, you like a good chapter before you go to sleep. I personally hear lots of people doing that. But if you start the book and now 5 hours later you're trying to get to the end, that's obviously not conducive to what we're trying to accomplish here.
I usually read a science article, so it gets so technical. The science article, something like stimulating, but gets overload. I just fall asleep. I don't think about that. So that's what I'll find something calm.
All right, how are you gonna measure it? How are you gonna hold yourself accountable?
Oh, I'm going to record it, of course.
Okay.
I have, and I'm sorry, I already started, but I haven't been recording anything. So now I'm gonna record how long. I'll probably do it in the morning. So I'll fall asleep. I'm not gonna think about recording, then I'll wake up.
That's great to hear. You seem enthusiastic. It could be seen as an extra step. Sometimes it feels like, oh, it's a whole nother thing to do. Yes, but if it's worth it, if it's really meaningful to you, it's worth it. You can make it quick, print out something that's easy for you to do, that you could look at, keep track of, and just to use it as your time. It helps you prioritize. It reminds you every day in the morning that you're going to be paying attention to it and you're going to be working on it again at the end of the evening. So that's one way to think about it. And are you going to start right away?
Next week also. I mean, I'm doing it, but until I get myself that I'm gonna make a spreadsheet that's appropriate, and yeah.
Preparing, doing what you need for your intellectual needs to
We'll
prepare.
talk on the phone and make sure that we're each coming.
Oh,
This is great. There was a comment from the audience for Zoom that Susan and Simone are going to talk and hold each other accountable because they're both going to be working on their sleep starting next week and holding each other accountable.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, anybody else want to volunteer their goal? Sam?
How about when the prescribed neurologist prescribed solution is sleep problem runs into counter what some other experts might say. In other words, I specifically my total sleep effort is at bedtime I have one, which you will remember, I think maybe that one time release level of the carpet and 2 300 milligram pills gabapentin, and that's it. And I also take 2 large doses of melatonin. Yeah, over 5, but the maximum you can take 10 milligrams.
Is that counter? Did you say this was counter?
Yeah, I've heard people say that gabapentin is bad for you.
Oh, no, it's usually promotes sleep. Some people use it at night to help sleep, right? I don't think anything is that.
Yeah, gabapentin, some people use at night. Melatonin, right? That's still on the natural side of things. And as Sam, as you mentioned, it's the idea of thinking about your timing of your other doses. Some people like having levodopa toward the tail end of the day to cover into the night because they do feel more comfortable, right? They're not as stiff, they're able to turn, reposition, right? If you're not comfortable in your bed, that is going to help, that's going to challenge the sleep more, as opposed to if you're more comfortable, then usually falling asleep becomes a little easier. But that's a variable thing, and that's very different person to person. So some people claim it's excellent getting that levodopa in at bedtime, having a bedtime dose, as opposed to others who may wake up a little bit more, and that's actually counterintuitive. And that's the ongoing conversation you have to have with your provider, right? To keep.
But I still wake up not thoroughly rested. I so droopy a lot during the day, which I don't want.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the stages of sleep too, because I remember Dr. Dan Barone talking at Grand Rounds about the stages of sleep, where if you sort of wake up in the N3, the 3rd stage, that's also when people don't feel as rested. It also could explain why if a person wakes up naturally as opposed to being woken up, waking up naturally, you tend to have a greater likelihood of feeling rested as opposed to there's your alarm, right? Or there's your, your cat jumping on the bed, and now you've been woken up.
My wife's very kind about that. She lets me sleep in.
Your wife is very kind and lets you sleep in. That's a good thing.
Sam, that could be maybe the medicines, or it could be the lack of dopamine, one of those. But yeah, maybe because of that, maybe there's a role to lower those doses. If you need to look at that, see if waking up groggy, then maybe there's a role to look at some under those.
Thanks a lot.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that
Thanks
last
so much.
Of course, absolutely. Very welcome. So I think we are just at time. If I could leave everybody with one last thought, when we analyzed the results of the CBTI educational group program and study, one thing that resonated was a lot of people did say that the immediate change didn't happen like overnight, right? The changing habits takes time. So picking a good start time, whether it be this week or next week, trying to stick to it, and then know that the results may evolve slowly. So even if you move from 6 fair hours of sleep to 6.5 slightly better hours, that's progress. And that most people reported that those increments changed slowly and over time. But if you stick to it, eventually you'll chip away and get there. So
Persistence, yep, and prioritizing it. So the writing part just really hold you accountable for that.
Yeah, so persistence, prioritizing, and then the accountability, right? If you write it down or have a buddy system. So
I want to add just two more things. I actually do a weekly journal. Writing daily is helpful, but I do a weekly journal where I write my different goals for all parts of what I have going on. So my family, my professional, my social, my health. So that's how I kind of I think about it once a week. I prioritize, okay, this week I need to focus on my physical health, exercise more. It's been a rough, so my body's feeling it. And then maybe the next week it's got a different priority. That's another way to approach it. Secondly, before bed, a stretching routine before bed is also a way to really prepare the body. It helps you become a little more comfortable. It most certainly gets the body into a relaxed mode. And it's a way to get this just stretching technique in. So after you've finished everything, take some minute to learn some gentle nighttime stretches if you don't have it. And you can email me. So my contact information is in that handout, info@mindfulneuro.com. The center, the contact information for the sleep center, but we didn't put in everybody's contact information. So maybe we can, what are we gonna provide it, or send it out?
Blast it out again.
Yeah.
I can add back in Dr. Paul Levinsky.
Yeah.
We send the recording around.
Okay, great. For anybody who registered, we'll send the recording around, and we'll also include contact information for all the speakers. Wonderful. And I want to offer one last breathing exercise. Is everyone ready for a few minutes, or is people ready to go? I can take a poll. The gongs. Okay, this is a tool that has been very helpful. I will not take too much time. Maurice is going to play some music for us. As he's getting it settled, play it low for now, so I'm going to explain. These bells ring every 5 seconds. The task is to try to time your breathing with the bells. So you want to inhale slowly and fully for 5 seconds. When the next bell rings, you start your exhale slowly and fully for 5 seconds. Okay. You're slowly regulating your breath. You're focusing on it. So trying to concentrate on it. And if it feels uncomfortable, because some people, it might be too long or too short, you can come up with your own count, but it's something like this. So you hear the bells, you can make it a little louder. Hear it on Zoom, but it's not playing very much on the room. just, I hear the bells, but it's from, so it's gong, 2, 3, 4, 5. The exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gong, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oop, those two. So count silently. Slowly get used to slow, deep. Remember we talked about exhaling your lungs in all directions, getting that air into the bottom of the lungs. Getting the audio for the room. Stay focused. Inhale, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gong, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. The gong is a really nice soundtrack. I will email a link to the YouTube video that has a little timer that you inhale and you watch the timer, and so you know how slow you need to do it. This has been by far the most enjoyable, liked exercise I teach. So I'm in the process of getting an app just for this exercise where people can choose how long to do their inhale and exhale. There's a lot of science that the 5-second inhale and exhale helps regulate the cardiopulmonary system with the autonomic system. But if you can also inhale for longer and exhale for longer, that's even better. There's a question from Rocco. Do this for? Yeah. 5 to 10 minutes is great. It triggers the relaxation response. A recent study had them do it for 20 minutes, and they showed that it actually changed your genes from the noradrenergic, from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. It actually changed gene signaling by doing this exercise 20 minutes for 4 weeks, 20 minutes daily. You don't have to do it that much, but that's what the science shows. When you start incorporating this, it extends to the rest of your life. You learn to slow your breath throughout the day. So it 100% makes sense that your genes change. You change your mindful awareness. It also changed the parasympathetic tone. So it's scientifically proven. One follow-up question. The question was how long to do it for. One follow-up question. That's what you have to, the question is to do it first thing in the morning or throughout. That's something that you need to figure out yourself. For each individual, when does it work in your routine? This is how I would approach it. When is a time that you want to relax? For me, it would probably be mid-afternoon. I get up and I do my morning, and by mid-afternoon, I'm ready for a mental break. I would do it then and make it a routine. The body gets used to it, incorporate then. For somebody maybe like Sam, who's a little groggy in the morning, maybe that's a good time to actually help the brain gently wake up. And after doing that for 10, 15 minutes, you will feel more clear. You're focusing on the breath. The soundtrack is easily available on YouTube, as I said, and the gongs are just lovely. They're loud, resonant gongs that ding, like vibrate for the entire 5 seconds. But at night is another option. If you want to calm yourself down before bed, then in the evening is also an opportunity. It's nice to do after exercise. Your body is already worked up. You have endorphins. If you do it after exercise, you really feel mindful and present. So I've given you many different options. Getting on a routine is something that I ask people to figure out for themselves. No one answer for everybody. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We have any Zoom questions? Let's see.
We asked them, I think.
Yeah, okay, good.
So I want to
Okay.
thank Dr. Wee, Natalie Helmers, Dr. Sarah Mulakutla. Thank you so much for presenting to all of us today. I think we need to practice, right? And that's what we do every day when we wake up. We have another chance to practice. And we're on this stage. Life is a stage. We have to rehearse every day, and that's called life.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining from Zoom.
By the way, the people on Zoom heard the